The tumultuous sound was deafening. Vanessa hated choppers, the extra loud motorcycles rode by white men with small cocks, and they wanted everyone to know it. Vanessa stopped walking altogether, waiting to see which way the asshole on the Harley would go. She regretted her shoe choice, and the short pause would at least give her feet a rest. Of course, the man on the bike headed straight in her direction, and of course, he was wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt. Typical, Vanessa thought. The ground was shaking, or perhaps it was just the vibrating in her eardrums as Vanessa looked down at her phone, avoiding eye contact with the man at all cost. Texas Avenue was less than a block away, and Vanessa could cut through the shopping center. She picked up her pace as the raucous sound slowly drifted away. She wished she had worn flats, but she also needed money. Money was easier to come by with heels on. There is no way that man can hear after riding that thing. So he has a small cock, and he is deaf. As she approached the slit between the two stores she would travel through, she saw Ms. Wanda, who was locking up her store. Shit. She didn't want to see anyone besides Beau. She pulled her phone back out from between where it was lodged in her tight booty shorts. She pretended to gaze at it and hoped Ms. Wanda would miss her when she turned around. She messaged Beau for the 5th time and sent just a question mark. She was almost at his house, but he hadn't responded all day. She was messaging from a new number, so maybe that was playing a role. Vanessa, is that you? Ms. Wanda said in her fake Creole accent. Shit, she had seen her. Hi, Ms. Wanda, how are you? I am good, girl. Wow, your makeup still looks good. How was your trip? It was, she was cut off. Good, are you ready to come in and get your makeup redone? Redone? Isn't it permanent makeup? Vanessa asked, but Wanda wasn't one who listened. Oh no, girl, are you being funny? I gotta go, I have a meeting, and it started 10 minutes ago, Vanessa lied. It didn't feel right to lie, but the real lie was the sign over Ms. Wanda's store that stated permanent makeup. If it was permanent, then why did she have to get it touched up? You got my number, girl, Wanda yelled out as Vanessa walked through the slit and beyond her store. Once behind the store, Vanessa saw that a row of grocery carts blocked the way. The carts were placed there as a blockade, so people didn't cut through the slit after hours. A homeless man was pushing his cart on the other side. Vanessa shook the middle carts, attempting to break them free. They didn't budge and only rattled the entire row. Motherfucker. You can't go Drew that way. The bum said, but he was high on something. His voice was extra high-pitched. What? Vanessa snapped back. She wasn't in the mood. Her stomach hurt, and despite eating everything in her house, she was starving. She yanked on the carts again. They shook, rattled, but didn't roll or separate. What the fuck? You cannot go Drew that way. I can't go through this way? You can't go Drew that way. Well, I ain't walking all the way around. You gots to. The bum said, and she could see his underbite containing a pair of teeth popping out above his big fat bottom lip. Fuck if I gots to. Vanessa hopped up onto the cart. She flipped her legs around, over, and hopped down on the other side. I might be a lady, but I am also a bad bitch. She looked at the bum who had stopped dead in his tracks, and she told him, that's how you do it. A black mutt started to growl at Vanessa. The dog likely belonged to the bum, but he didn't tell the dog to hush, so Vanessa did. Oh, hush it up. And she picked her pace back up to where it had been pre-Chopper and pre-Wanda. Arriving at Texas Street, the mile walk had felt longer than her entire trek back from Haiti. Now that she was back, she was eager to figure out what in the fuck was going on. Standing outside Beau's house, she pulled out her phone and texted him. She still had to use her middle finger as her index was still blackened at the tip. She didn't know how long that would last, and she also knew only Beau would have the answers. Hopefully? He wasn't texting back, and he wasn't home. All his lights were off, and his car was gone. Vanessa went to call him. Forgetting her finger was burnt, she dialed his name in her phone with it. It hurt. The pain shot through her body, but it wasn't as bad as when she had burned it 1 week ago today. It had been the weirdest injury she ever had. She had been asleep in her hotel, reached for her phone, and the sunlight shining through the tiny crack in her curtain hit the tip of her finger so hard it felt like she had been shot. She jerked it back, pain shot through her whole body. The man was still there. He was in her room. And he reminded her, careful with the sun. He was still awake, drinking his big glass of wine, and Vanessa went back to sleep. She didn't want to fall asleep, but she had been so tired. Her body had hurt before her finger got burned. She was sick. It was the flu, or perhaps the new virus going around, that was on the news. Her entire body hurt, and she felt dehydrated like a bad hangover. She was over it now, and she had been staying away from the sun. Where the fuck is Beau? Beau didn't answer her phone call. She walked up to his side path to his front door and rang the doorbell despite it being very obvious that the place was empty. She rang the doorbell and tried to open the screen door but she couldn't. It's not that she couldn't because it was locked, she couldn't because her body wouldn't let her. What the hell is going on now? I need you, Beau. She rang the doorbell 3 times as fast as she could. Nothing happened, and then her stomach growled again. She was so freaking hungry. She texted him again. I am at your house. I got a new phone number. This is Vanessa. Message me back, please. Finally, she gave up. Turning around, she noticed a truck driving down the street. She hoped it was Beau, but he drove a purple VW Bug. The truck stopped as she made her way to the road to cross. The rear lights changed from red to white, and the car backed up, almost hitting her. A long-necked white man with a beer logo on his hat poked his head out of the window. You need a ride, sexy? Yeah, I do. Get in. Walking around to the other side of the truck, she noticed a cooler and fishing gear in the bed. A true sign that a redneck like this one was drunk. She jumped into shotgun and saw the man was jerking his dick off. His eyes were bloodshot red, and he smelt like a barback sneaker. My name is Wayne. You got any money? She asked directly. I got $25. $25, I ain't some cheap whore. You are the lady I like, though, right? What's that supposed to mean? Vanessa asked as she noticed an empty bush can on the floorboard and a plastic bottle of Heaven Hill half gone under Wayne's right leg. You know what that means. He was slurring his words. We will find out. Make a right on OBT. I gotta see if Beau is over at his brother's house. Who is Beau? Beau is my pimp, we gotta hurry. He has a bed over there. Can I see it? He was still tugging on his cock, and gave 0 fucks if it bothered anyone. Vanessa knew precisely what the man wanted. She also didn't feel like walking back to her house, and if she got this pervert to his finishing point, he would kick her out of his truck. She'd have to string him along even though he only had $25. Take a right on OBT, I will show it to you in a minute. I saw a cop riding by and don't know if he is looping back. Vanessa glanced into her rearview mirror to pretend to be looking for a cop. Really? Shit. He put the car into drive while staring in his rearview, looking for the cop too. Make a right. The man put on his turn signal and turned right onto Orange Blossom Trail. The strip was coming alive. It was almost 10 p.m., and traffic was still nearly as thick as 5 p.m. Women were out walking now, not that they hadn't been out walking during the day, but now they didn't glance over their shoulders as much. The men were out too, but most of them never glanced over their shoulders. The rolling bass of a car with a system in it sped by, and Vanessa cracked her window. The smell of booze on the man was strong, but he also had an odor of BO and cigarettes. She peeked again into the rear view, making sure Wayne didn't pull out in front of a cop. Where are we going now? He asked with a harsh tone. He wasn't touching himself anymore, but he was eager to get back to it. Just keep going straight. It's right up the street. Beau might be at Jim's, and if he wasn't, she might be in trouble. Passing a furniture store, a cop sat in the parking lot, idling, waiting for a call. Wayne hit the brakes hard. Don't slow down too much, or he will know you are up to something. Up to something? I ain't up to nothing. You seen my bumper sticker? Vanessa didn't answer. She hadn't seen his bumper sticker. She didn't care and knew Johnny Law wouldn't care either. It says, I support law enforcement. I don't ever get pulled over. The light in front of them flashed from green to yellow, and Wayne was on pace to coast through the light before it changed to red. Not understand this, likely from the booze brain, Wayne slammed on his brakes again. This time he stopped the truck entirely. It was in the middle of the intersection. Shoot. Shit, Vanessa added, and she whipped her head around to see what the cop was doing. Wayne threw the truck into reverse and backed up to the white line. You should have just ran that shit. It was yellow. It's okay, Wayne informed her, but he was starting to sweat and looking back at the cop. They waited patiently for the light to turn green. When it did, Wayne hit the gas, and the car shot into reverse. He fixed his error and pulled forward. Jesus Chrysler, how much you had to drink? I ain't had nothing to drink. I can smell that shit. I could smell it as soon as I got into the car. Vanessa saw the headlights of the cop car turn on. Shit. What? Oh shit, Wayne added as soon as he saw the cop now turning out of the furniture store. Take a right here, Vanessa said out of nowhere, but it was the wrong thing to speak to a man with reflexes as slow as Wayne's. He hit the brakes lightly and made a right. He didn't use a turn signal and barely slowed down. Vanessa grabbed the oh shit handle and then spun around in her seat to see if the cop was following them. When she saw the headlights, she knew they were toast. Both of them used their favorite four-letter vocabulary words. Fuck. Shit. The blueberry and strawberry lights flashed on a second later, and Wayne pulled his truck over to the right. They were now on a side street, it was dark, and Vanessa thought about running. She wouldn't get far in her high heels. They weren't her tall stilettos, but they had a small heel. She could slip them off and try to run barefoot, but she wouldn't get far. She decided to sit tight. She didn't have any warrants that she knew of anyway, and if anything, she could say Wayne was just giving her a ride home. Slipping on her seatbelt, she sunk low in the seat. Sit tight and let me do the talking, Wayne said. He had shoved his bottle of Heaven Hill under his butt, and Vanessa knew it was only a matter of a minute or two before the cop was giving a field sobriety test. Evening, officer, what can I help you with me? He was drunk and couldn't even say hello correctly. Vanessa rolled her head back. Hopefully, she wouldn't end up in jail too. I need your driver's license and registration. A black object flashed in the rear view, and Vanessa bent forward to see what it was. Hello, ma'am, I need to see your ID. Shit. You scared me. It was a second cop. The car held double the trouble, and he was at her window. He put his flashlight into the car. What are you two out doing tonight? He asked Vanessa with his light flashing over her face every 2 seconds. Officer, did you see my bumper sticker? Wayne was wondering. License and registration. Yeah, okay, here goes my license. Wayne lifted his butt to grab his wallet, and the cop on the passenger side saw the pint of Heaven Hill. I need to see your ID, ma'am. You two been drinking tonight? I don't drink, Vanessa informed the police officer. She couldn't see him and didn't have a clue what he looked like. Her eyes were getting flashed so much she couldn't focus on anything. She handed her ID to the police officer, and Wayne did the same. Wayne leaned over her, opened the glove box, and pulled out a wad of papers. He dug through them until he found the registration. He handed it to the hand in his window. Sit tight for a second. The cop on Wayne's sighed. The cop outside Vanessa's window didn't budge. He put his light on her ID and then stuck his face into the truck window. Edgar, man, you been drinking tonight, Eddie? Vanessa hated that name. She hated everything about that name. Edgar, an Anglo-Saxon name that her father had picked out. His last departing gift before splitting to who knows where. She even hated her last name. The name her mother changed it to so she would have the same name as her. Man. Such an ugly last name, her father's last name might have suited her more. It was Green. Not that Edgar Green would have been any prettier. It was an all-around ugly name. Eddie. Ed. She had heard all the nicknames growing up. Some people even went with Edwin and Edward, calling her a longer, wrong version of her name. Edgar was ugly. Edgar Man was a man's name. It said man right in the name. That is why she went with Vanessa. Vanessa was sexy. It was what she wanted to be. Vanessa was eloquent and beautiful. She didn't even mind the man part when she started calling herself Vanessa. She was mainly on a first-name basis with her customers, but on her social media, she kept the man. It was easier. Vanessa Mann. It didn't sound ugly when she said it. It rolled off her tongue. The officer was shining his light on the floorboard. He saw the empty can of beer. He could see the glazy, red eyes of Wayne each time he put his light on Wayne's face. "What do you say, Edgardo?" Edgardo. She hadn't heard that use of her name in a long while. She hated it too. She really needed to pay the $250 to have her name officially changed. Perhaps she would pick a new last name too. Maybe she would go with Green. Vanessa Green. A tribute to her deadbeat father that she never met. "I don't drink." "You don't drink? You can't survive if you don't drink. Humans need water to live." He was a smartass. Vanessa tilted her head to look at him. "Do you know Edgardo here has a penis bigger than you and me, huh?" the cop asked Wayne. They were both going to jail or worse. The CB on his shoulder made a shrieking sound, followed by a voice, "Shots fired, we have one officer down." Repeat, "Shots fired, officer down." Florida Turnpike in South OBT. He turned to touch it. The other cop was now at Wayne's window. He was handing back Wayne his ID and registration. "You two sit tight, wait here. We will be right back." "Wait here?" Wayne asked. Vanessa was handed back her ID too. "You are free to go," he told her. "Free to go?" He said, "Wait here." Neither one answered, and they ran back to their car. They jumped in, turned off the spotlight, turned around, and dashed away with the red and blues on top blaring. "Holy smokes, that was close," Vanessa said. Her belly untightened. "I told you once they saw my bumper sticker, they would let us go," Wayne said as if he had missed the call on the radio and the mad dash to leave. "Right," Vanessa answered. "I bet you don't get that type of pull around here much, huh?" She just stared at him. She had no idea what that meant. "A black lady like you doesn't get away with shit, I bet. A white man like me, well, I guess it pays to be white when dealing with the cops." He was a moronic idiot, but he was right for the most part. If the cops wanted to harass Vanessa, they would and did. She had learned a long time ago that being as dark as she was, meant the cops would do what they wanted. They would search her when she walked up and down the strip as a teenager. She was still dressing like a boy back then. They would touch her all over and sometimes take the small amount of cash she did have on her. They were the only people that ever showed her attention. Back before her mom passed away, she wouldn't even fight it. She let them do it. What could she do anyway? They were the law. If they wanted to fuck with her, they would. It didn't matter that she was only half black. She was black enough. Her father's Haitian skin was dominant in her melanin. Then when she first started walking the strip to make money, they didn't harass her as much. What a difference a dress makes. When she was dressed as a male, they would get her once or twice a week, emptying her pockets and accusing her of selling crack. When she put the wig on, and the long dresses, and the heels, they wouldn't mess with her as much. Maybe once a month. They would search her for drugs, pipes, and whatever else they might find. They would still take her money, though. That's why she always went back to her house. She would put away the money and then get back out on the street. Her mama did teach her that. Not that her mama taught her that on purpose. Vanessa's mother never taught her anything besides don't trust anyone, not even her mother. Wayne drove off with a new sense of false confidence. He made 2 lefts and a right to get them back southbound on OTB. He turned his radio up. It was tuned to a country station blasting bullshit and twang that Vanessa hated the sound of, and then he started to sing with the song on the radio. Vanessa didn't even care. She was thrilled they weren't headed to county. "Make a left up here, right before that gas station." "A right?" Wayne asked. He was unable to hear with the loud music and his out-of-key singing. "No, left, right there." "Huh?" The words were confusing him. "Make a left turn in front of the road in front of the gas station." He didn't respond, but he slid into the middle lane and then made the left. Again, not using his turn signal. They turned down another dark side road. This one was littered with parked cars. Jim's house was the last one on the left, and there was an empty, abandoned lot after an alley. There is a lot at the end of this street. Turn into the alley on the right at the end. Most of the houses were dark and empty looking, but Vanessa knew most were occupied. Even a foreclosed home in this part of the town had people squatting in it. That's how it was. Jim's house was dark too, but the lights being off didn't mean it was empty. The lack of his car or Beau's car meant it was empty, though. Shit, Vanessa said. Wayne's eyes raised to his rear view, thinking Vanessa was cussing because the cops had returned. When he saw only pitch black behind him, he asked, "What?" "Nothing, turn down that alley." The street was a dead end, but a gravel alleyway was on either side. Wayne pulled his truck into the alley just to the left of Jim's house. "That lot there." Vanessa pointed. She wasn't happy about making just $25, especially now that Jim wasn't home, and she would have to convince this drunk man to give her a ride back home. She was really hoping Jim was home at least, but Bo being here would have been even better. Wayne turned left, kept the steering wheel hard left, and pulled his truck up to the cracked, chain-link fence. He shoved his car into park, turned off the lights, and stared at her. "So," he said before he pulled out his bottle of Heaven Hill and took a long drink. "The money," Vanessa reminded him. He pulled out a $20 bill. "All I got's is 20. You said you had 25? I got some change there in the ashtray." Vanessa leaned up and saw 2 quarters and 2 pennies. Wayne put his liquor back, and he put his hand into his pants. He pulled out his small, pink cock. "Look at my fat cock, and tell me you don't want to suck it for free." His cock wasn't fat, and she most definitely didn't want to suck it for free. She didn't want to suck it at all. She could smell him now, and he smelled gross. His penis would likely smell gross too. "I don't suck dick for $20. "Oh, but you do for $5 more?" Her stomach again growled. She was starving. "That your stomach?" "Huh?" Vanessa asked him. "Your stomach was growling. You probably saw my big hard cock and got hungry, huh?" "I am hungry as a hostage, but not for $20. "Fine, how much to suck it?" Wayne lifted his butt, pulled out his wallet, and showed off it was full of green bills. Vanessa's eyes lit up. He had been trying to hustle her. 100 to fuck. 100? I don't even want to fuck. Vanessa stared at his wallet. She had to get as much out of this man as she could. "What you want?" "I want to see it first. It ain't bigger than mine." 20 to see it, 60 to suck it. $60 to suck your cock? "Yes, baby," Vanessa rubbed her leg as she licked her lips. She had to turn on her charm now. "Let me see if it is bigger than mine first." His cock was 3.3 inches long. It leaned to the left, the way he pulled it, and the mushroom head on top was tiny. 20. Wayne handed her the loose 20 he had. She stuck the money into her bra, pulled her long dress up, sat her butt up, and pulled her purple panties to the side. The mammoth between her legs popped up like a jack-in-the-box. It was the color of dark chocolate and just over 11.5 inches long. It was flaccid and still over 9 inches. The head was a tan color and thick as a doorknob. The whole cock was wide enough to fit into a coffee mug. Vanessa knows because she had tried. It was a beautiful cock, and she saw Wayne's eyes light up as he stared at it. "Oh my, I gotta suck it," he said while pulling on his own. "Yeah, $60, Wayne." Wayne wasn't that old. He was only slightly older than Vanessa, who was 21. He wasn't bad looking, not ugly by any means, and she started to wonder how a young, average-looking dude had ended up here, paying to suck the cock of a transsexual. He pulled out 3 bills from his wallet, forgetting that he had already given out 20. He handed her 3 more. She stuffed it into her bra, and she wasn't finished when his head fell into her lap. He was thirsty for her cock, and couldn't hold back. He started to suck it hard, and his teeth rubbed against her shaft. She grimaced, moving her whole body, and yelled out, "No teeth, please." "Sorry," he tried to say back, his mouth full of her, so it came out distorted. She placed her hand on his head. His hat was gone, and his blonde hair was receding. He was still jerking himself, and he had his ass up in the air. His head was terrible. He was rushing, rubbing his teeth, and not focusing on the task at hand. Hopefully, he will come quickly, Vanessa thought as she lifted her back. She dashed her eyes around to see if anyone was coming. She didn't see anything in any direction. She needed to turn it up, so this man would come. She didn't want to fuck him. She would for more money, but she wanted to get it over with. "Suck that big tranny cock," she said. She saw his ass move, his hand beating faster on his small cock. The verbal arousal always worked. Men love to hear what they are doing. You like sucking that cock, don't you? Ha, he answered, his words not coming out with her in his mouth. You are doing a good job sucking that cock, she said, again using a technique. Tell the men they are doing awesome, and they get off even quicker. They are never doing a good job, but they always think they are, and once told, they get excited. He sucked her for another minute and then pulled his head up. Are you close? I am really close. I'm going to come soon. Vanessa wasn't even rock hard yet. She lied, I am close, baby. Keep sucking me. He tried to kiss her. A no-no for 99% of prostitutes unless the man is really paying. She pushed his head back down, but she could see he wasn't going to last. I'm doing a good job, he said before putting his lips and teeth back on her she-meat. He went up and down a few more times and then pulled his head up again. His breath stunk, and it wasn't from her cock. He had terrible hygiene, period. Call me a faggot for sucking your cock. He again went for her lips. She rolled her neck away, and he started to suck on her neck. Say it, call me a faggot for sucking your big, hard cock. Are you a faggot, Wayne? Are you a cock-sucking faggot? She said into his ear. He arched his neck up and moved his cock in closer to Vanessa. Faggot was his trigger word. You are a faggot, Wayne. Suck on my big tranny cock, faggot, she demanded. His mouth found the tip of her cock. He licked it and then opened his lips to take it all in. He couldn't get more than 4 inches into his throat without gagging, but the gagging was turning him on even more. He bopped a few times and then gagged and came up for air. Call me a faggot again. It wasn't going to be long now. All the stimulation was getting Vanessa aroused a little more, and she felt her cock jump. She wouldn't mind fucking this man now. She had a condom, and fucking him would be fun. She could really abuse him. She leaned into his ear and repeated it, You are a faggot, Wayne. Oh my God. He was going to bust. Vanessa was gripping her cock now. Pulling on it, it was almost rock hard. Wayne was arching his neck up, and she had a flashback. She remembered her first time. Not her first time sucking cock, but her first time sucking cock for money. She was 17 and had only been dressing up for a few weeks when she got picked up. It was by a man in a truck, a red truck, and the man was over 50 or 55. He had white hair, and his truck sat a lot higher than Wayne's did. He had asked if she needed a ride just as Wayne did. She was hesitant, but she got in anyway. The man was drunk too. Vanessa was nervous, and he pulled out his cock, and he had a $50 bill on the middle seat. She stuck it in her bra, and she started to suck the man. His white cock was a lot longer and fatter. It wasn't as big as hers, but it was twice the size of Wayne's. He was rubbing her ass as she did. He would shove her head down hard on his cock, until she couldn't breathe, and at the same time, he would lift his ass, making her take it all the way down her throat. She could deep throat, but she hadn't been face-fucked like that before. Then he asked to see her cock. Vanessa didn't know if the man knew. She thought maybe she had tricked him. She trapped him, as it is known. She hadn't trapped him, though, he knew. He wanted to see her cock, and he wanted to suck it. She was younger then, skinnier too. Her cock was just as fat, though, and when this man saw it, his eyes lit up just like Wayne's. Most of the men have the same reaction to her cock. And they all want to suck it. They all do. This man was bigger in the body, fatter, and he had a hard time getting to it in his truck. He found his way, though. He sucked her soft and from the side. His head was in her lap. He was laying down, sucking it sideways, licking it, and he played with her balls with his left hand. His right hand was on his junk. He wasn't doing any of the work fast. He was taking his time, enjoying the $50 he had spent. Vanessa had been nervous. Her eyes were darting around in every direction, making sure the police didn't come. That was her big fear back then, getting arrested and taken to county in a dress. Then seeing someone she knew. Most of the people she knew had been to county at least a few times. She couldn't keep her cock hard. The old man didn't mind because he probably didn't notice. It was so big. He sucked it for a long 10 minutes. Deep-throating, licking, kissing, and making love to it. When he sat up to come, he made her bend over. He made her take it on her face. She didn't say no. She didn't disagree with him at all. She lowered her face, and he shot his load all over her. He moaned out loudly, a manly moan that turned her on. His cum was warm, wet, and he shot it all over her face and hair. He held her face down while he finished it, and then he smacked his white cock on her face as it dripped out the last bits. Then his whole mood changed. His hand moved down to her throat, and he said, "What the fuck do you think? Do you think I am some sort of cocksucking faggot, huh?" Vanessa couldn't answer him. He was choking her fiercely. The blood and oxygen were cut off to her brain. She was smacking his hand, begging him to remove it. Water was squeezing out of her eyes. She began to claw the man's hand with her nails. He squeezed her tighter and said, "You are the faggot here, you understand, you are the faggot." His voice was full of hate, and his eyes were black. Vanessa thought she was going to die. And just before she did pass out, he let go. Air rushed into her throat, blood swam back to her brain, and she pulled herself away. She reached for the door handle, yanked it, but the door was locked. She searched for the unlock but couldn't find it. Then she heard the noise. The man had unlocked it. She reached back for the door handle, pulled it, and opened the door. She quickly glanced at the man. He was naked from the waist down, and he put his foot up. He kicked her hard, and she fell out of the truck. She fell hard onto the ground, palms and knees first. The concrete cutting both. The man tossed both her shoes out. One hitting her in the leg. The other sailed over her. Then he sped off without shutting the door. It slammed shut a second later, and his tires squealed as she sped off. She grabbed her shoes and held her throat. It had red marks that would bruise, turning black and purple, and be visible for 10 days afterward. She avoided red trucks for a year after that. Any red truck that sat up high, she wouldn't go near, fearful the man would come back to finish the job and kill her. Her first time had been awful, but here she was, 4 years later, still turning tricks to survive. Wayne was all in her face. He was repeating, I'm going to come, but he wasn't getting there. She had to go back to her bag of tricks. I'm going to come too, she shouted as she sat up. My hard cock is going to come. She wasn't even close to coming, but she knew it would help get him there. He was arching his head up while jerking his small meat off, and he was hoping to shoot his cum all over her. He fell a bit, and she knew he was going to squirt. His neck was inches from her forehead, and she saw his tiny cock start to spray out. I am coming. He shrieked. Vanessa couldn't hold herself back anymore. She had been hungry since he had returned from Haiti, and perhaps that is why she did what she did. She didn't know, but she didn't want to hold back anymore. It was instinctual. She opened her mouth and bit into Wayne's neck as he came all over the middle seat in his truck. Her teeth penetrated his skin, bursting the central vein in his neck, and blood shot everywhere.